Hey,
Hello,
Mike.
Julian.
How you doing? Right, well, why are you wearing your flat hat and tweed jacket? What's all that about?
We've got none other than Julian Norton, the Yorkshire Vet. Let's get it. Oh, you better get dressed.
Put your flat cap on.
Put your flat cap on.
Great.
Let's get him in. Julian Norton, the Yorkshire Vet.
Hi, I'm Mike Brampton.
And my name is Julian Ho.
Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings.
Let's get him in.
Great.
Here we go.
Yep.
Brilliant.
He's on there.
What an entry.
That's fantastic.
And enter stage left, Julian Norton. Hello, Julian.
Hi there.
I just wanted to get my charger because I don't want to run out of batteries.
That's a good idea.
Good idea. Good to meet you, Julian.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's quite exciting. I've not done a veterinary podcast quite like this. I suspect it's going to be.
Well, not many people have. It's sort of out there and a bit avant-garde and all that.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Julian.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Do you have to go through all of that rigmarole with the TV series?
Yeah, it's a different world, really. Quite interesting. It's a different world.
You enjoy it, do you?
Yeah, about 75% of the time it's good, and it's a nice thing to be doing, and it's nice to be able to share what we do with anybody who wants to watch. So yesterday, I operated on a cat with pyometra, and it was a massive uterus, nearly a kilo, and a little cat full of pus. And it was amazing for me to watch, the nurses to watch, and the cat to be cured, and the owner to have a cat that's mended. And when there's a camera there and you're all talking about the amazingness of this thing, you know full well that in 6 months' time, whenever the next series is out, there'll be 2 million people at home, maybe people on Gogglebox who also get to watch that same thing. And it's an amazing feeling that you can share what you do with, millions of people who'll be sitting on their sofa and getting part of that same experience. And that's something that it's really powerful, and it's quite humbling to think that just doing your normal work will have an impact upon normal people on their sofas on a Tuesday night. So that's amazing. But equally, there's times when it's hard. I mean, there's a lot of pressure for content and for stories, and it gets in the way a little bit, and it can be quite demanding. It's a bit less so now, but there's been times where I felt very pressured, and there's a lot of responsibility to keep this popular thing going. But on the whole, yeah, 75% of the time it's good. 25% of the time it's a pain in the neck, and I wish I could go back to being normal again.
Yeah, we can relate to that, Julian, because obviously with Veterinary Ramblings, it's quite humbling to be able to sit here and chat about life and stuff with you, knowing that we're going out to how many was it the last count, Julian?
Well, you said 2 million, didn't you, Norton? We had, I think we had 3.
Yeah, downloads last week was 3. Yeah,
three downloads.
Sorry. That's 3 lives that have been touched and enhanced, and you've brought joy to 3 people. Better than bringing joy and happiness and amusement to no people. It's quite good, isn't it? It's an interesting sort of platform. I've not done any for a while, but I've done some podcasts under the title The Naked Vet with a friend of mine who's a performance poet. And it's quite entertaining. It's, I think, 2 people just chatting and having a bit of a laugh, and especially with 3 people, there's a bit more banter as well. Yeah. So I think there's a place for it.
Speaking about the Naked Vet, can I take this gear off now, Julian?
This hat's a bit hot as well.
No, leave the hat on.
We wanted to make you feel welcome. That was the thing.
Yeah. That was all it was. It was just it's just all too itchy, We thought, well, the Yorkshire Vet.
Yeah,
we better put a flat cap on and
tear it down your trousers.
I used to wear a flat cap all the time when I first started as a vet, and it was my grandfather's flat cap, and he was an amazing guy who was probably one of the first people really to get me interested in animals. And he kept pigs and had a small holding. And when he died, when I was a little kid, I sort of inherited his collection of flat caps, and I used to wear them kind of constant. When I was a little kid, Kess, the film about the little lad who has the kestrel.
Oh yeah,
a little bit like that. I was this sort of a bit kind of like a Yorkshire urchin, and I used to wear a flat cap and have ferrets and go down to the greyhound track, and I kept that flat cap all the way through university and into my first job as a vet.
I used to wear the flat cap when I was a mixed practice vet. I used to wear it out on the farm, thinking it might have a bit of credibility. But actually, I love it. They're great hats because they stay on even in a strong wind. Don't they?
Yeah.
They're good.
I was going to say they stay on. They're remarkably warm, aren't they? And don't cover up your ears so you can still hear things. And versatile pieces of equipment.
They're very useful.
Although they've been taken over from Yorkshire now, haven't they? Because there's a whole group of guys on the television who talk like this, and they wear flat caps, don't they?
With a scalp.
The Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders,
you wear it back to front like that.
Sometimes. That looks like Eminem. But
that's Frank Spencer.
Or you can wear them. Frank Spencer. Betty. Oh, gosh, he died of death, didn't he, really? Michael Crawford.
Yeah.
He was a brilliant stuntsman, wasn't he? He used to do all his own stunts.
Yeah, there was one of the very early episodes of the Yorkshire Vet. They were trying to do something lighthearted about what we do in our spare time away from work. And at the time, I was training to do a ski mountaineering race across the Swiss Alps called the Pétrole des Glaciers, and it goes from Zermatt to Verbier across all up and down mountains and stuff. And to train in Yorkshire, there's obviously no snowy mountains, so I got these roller skis. And I was practicing every spare moment on these roller skis on the quiet roads of Yorkshire where no one would see me. And you had to have a road that was the right flatness, because if any kind of incline, and you'd either not go forwards or you'd go forwards really, really fast and out of control because they've got no brakes. And and so one of my friends who was a camera person for the Yorkshire Vet said, "Oh, Julian, can we, what can we do? We want to do something kind of a bit comical, what you might do when you're not at work." And they came to film me going down this bumpy road in the middle of the North Yorkshire moors. And what I didn't realise was when I bought these long skis, I'd got the wrong bindings for the skis, which meant it was almost impossible to ski on. I didn't realise that. I've never done it before. And it was just like Frank Spencer on that episode where he was on his roller skates and he went...
And he grabs the bike.
Exactly,
The bus, right? Grabs the bus.
And he goes under a lorry, and it was just like that. And I was thinking, and I'd been making a point of going specifically to quiet roads where no one could see me. And the next thing I knew, the camera pointing at me, and it ended up in episode 3 of series 4 or whatever on National. And it still persists. Actually, there's a little, there's a rolling BT clip in the World of James Herriot Museum in Thirsk, and the little clip they chose to show over and over again on a loop to visitors to Thirsk who want to experience the veterinary story was me on these ridiculous roller skis looking like Frank Spencer. Luckily, I didn't have my flat cap on backwards on that.
Good. Good.
So do you still do your own stunts on the show then?
It's all me. Yeah. We had. I was supposed to be seeing a pig the other day. It got abandoned because the cameraman went to see the pig in advance. He needed his feet cutting or trimming, like a sort of pet pig. And as I'm on my way there, the camera guy had gone there in advance to prepare and get. Anyway, the pig had attacked him and charged at him and taken a big gouge out of the inside of his thigh. So yeah, it is, as you'll know, it can be quite dangerous, and it does sometimes feel like we're doing stunts, I think, doesn't it?
It does. I remember going back to the practice one night when I was on call, having just seen a horse that had a nasty gash on its leg, which I sutured, and then went back to the practice to suture my own leg. Because as it raised its foot towards me, a loose nail just unzipped my shin. The nurse came into the practice, and I was there with my leg up on the operating table.
Yeah. And how was it? Did you manage it okay?
Yeah, it was fine. I did a little nerve block. Obviously,
nice.
These days you wouldn't be allowed to, but probably weren't then. It's beyond the statutes.
I reckon you can do what you want on yourself, can you not?
I did try and sue myself, but it was unsuccessful. I'm afraid that in court.
Yeah.
surgical trespass.
So tell me, Julian, on the show, the Yorkshire Vet, you rock up to 3 a.m. farm emergencies.
Yeah.
How do the camera crew get there?
That's a good question. So when I'm on call, the camera team get very excited and they say, "Oh, great, Julian's on call. We'd better hang around in case an exciting carving happens or there's something that's a great amount of excitement." So they usually stay very nearby where I live in a bed and breakfast or a hotel or something. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, when the farmer phones up and says my sheep's lambing or my cow's got a prolapse, I then very quickly phone up the camera people and say, "Laura, I'm really sorry. I know you're really tired, but great news, we've got an emergency. I'll pick you up in 5 minutes." So I jump out of bed, as you do, fumble around, find your clothes and everything else that you need. And they're doing the same, but then they've got to get the camera organised and everything.
Yeah.
So I then usually drive past where they're staying, which is usually a couple of minutes from our house. Pick them up, and there'll be a camera person holding the camera, and there'll be a sound person holding the boom, and getting all the other documents and permissions and all that sort of stuff organised. So I pick them up, bundle them into the car, and off we go. And then turn. And sometimes I have to say to the farmer when I phone him up and say, "So it really is lambing. You definitely want me to come?" And they say, "Yeah, I definitely want you to come." And then sometimes I say, "Is it okay if I bring the camera team? They're staying nearby. They'd love to come and see what action goes on your farm at 2 o'clock in the morning." Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I wing it and hope that we can. Because what happens then is if they say, "Oh no, they can bugger off. I don't want anything like that," that's the end of that.
Of course.
It's worth sometimes living a little bit open and taking a gamble that when I turn up with two attractive young women sitting next to me in the car or in the passenger seat or in the boot, not in the boot, in the back seat.
You keep attractive women in your boot?
Interesting. Are the police aware of this?
Smart move.
Wellies and drugs. Not drugs, obviously. And
So can we clarify for listeners and viewers? You don't keep attractive young women in your boot. You keep your wellies in the boot.
No, wellies in the boot.
Farm with two attractive women in the car.
Yeah, one who's got a camera, the other's who's got a boom.
Okay, right.
Sound boom. And so what happened once was exactly this. It was freezing cold, middle of the night, and the farmer said, "Oh, I've got a heifer calving. It's going to be really bad. Can you come and help?" And I just kind of took the punt that we could persuade him to film it. Because of course, if farmers don't want to be filmed, and if pet owners don't want to be filmed, we haven't got a story to make. We haven't got a program. So it's vital that we get their consent.
It's just you sitting down telling anecdotes then, isn't it? You should have seen the one I did earlier.
Yeah, it's a podcast like this. So which gets three viewers rather than 2 million. So it's really crucial to get it right.
It's easy enough.
So this one occasion, and so phoned up Laura and Natasha and said, "I'm really sorry, but could be really good. It's up at the high buildings, it's blowing a gale, it was freezing cold, really sort of traditional old farm." And picked them up, and they were in like about 10 layers of clothing and could, like medieval knights getting on a horse, they can't kind of move, and both sort of waddling towards the car and sort of lift them into the respective seats, and got there middle of the night, blowing a gale, like a bit of kind of blizzardy kind of in the air. There's this heifer struggling to calve. "Oh, is it all right if we film it?" "Oh, don't know about that. Not keen on that for an idea." And luckily, our eyelashes were fluttered, and we managed to film it, and it made a really brilliant story because it was in the middle of the night. But that's how it happens, yeah. And so the current chap who's my kind of cameraman lives in not a million miles away. So a lot of the clients would be halfway between where I live and where he lives. So I'd phone him up and say, "Ross, I've got a cow to calve. If it's a Sunday night or whatever, can you come to this place?" And he'd say, "Yeah, give me the postcode," and we'd meet there. So it is a logistical problem, and one that needs to be solved in a very short space of time. But it's another
Yes, because you can't leave the patient waiting too long, can you?
Exactly, yeah. So the veterinary element is always the priority, and that always takes precedent. And the camera people in the production company are very aware that we can't do anything different. We've got to do the veterinary angle first. But if it's something that that might wait for a couple of minutes, and any emergency depends where the vet is, whether he's doing something else, how far he is from the farm, or she is from the farm. You're not going to be there within 2 minutes. There's going to be a bit of a lag, and if we can facilitate, a man with a camera or whatever, it can make some good stories. But there's lots of hurdles to get past to get that story into an episode. One of which having the camera there at the right time, and the next is permission and consent, which isn't a given. And then it needs to go to vaguely to plan. It doesn't always work if I totally balls up the procedure.
So do you have the right to sort of say, okay, enough guys, this isn't going the way I want it to go. I need to concentrate on what I'm going to do, otherwise we're going to lose everything here. Do you mind not showing that? Have you got the how's your contract with regards to that?
Yeah, I mean they're very good. All the PD is a word for a camera person, producer, director. They're very, very good, and they're very sympathetic. And if there's something that is, not going to plan, or say it's a carving and the calf's dead and it needs an embryotomy or something that's not really palatable, as it were, then there's a sort of mutual agreement that this isn't going to happen. Sometimes the farmer says no, or the owner says no, I'd rather not do that. And sometimes I say, look guys, this isn't right, let's just cut it. And if they persist in filming, which they rarely do, I just start swearing and going blah 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 and going like this and going like this, and then
so then they can't do it anyway.
Use it anyway. So ultimately, I can kibosh it if I want.
Yeah.
But we've got we've been doing it now for 6 years, and we've got a good relationship with everybody. It's in everybody's interests. Nobody's out to portray anybody as being, whatever. I mean, it's sometimes an issue if we've got. I'm operating on a dog tomorrow with a big lump that needs to be removed, and that's going to be filmed. The owner's happy to film that, and you have to be careful that there isn't a perception from a viewer. Why has this owner left this lump so long before it's been dealt with?
Sure. You can't portray the owners in a bad or negligent light.
Yeah.
Not only for the sake of humanity and compassion, but I guess for legal reasons. You don't want anyone suing the program for defamation, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's never been anything that's been like that. It's all very balanced and sensible, and it's true to life. It's very true to life. Nothing that happens has been made up. Of course, when things are edited together and when there's a voiceover that explains the problem, that can be, emphasizing lots of different kind of directions, and it's always done in a very sort of sympathetic way. It's a warm program. It's it's celebrating happiness and nice things. It's not it's not an expose on owners who don't take the dog to the vet because they're worried that it's going to be too expensive.
It's just a good bit of life drama and a lot of emotional issues, aren't there? I've seen a few episodes, and it really does bring out the emotions of the owners quite well.
It does, yeah. And I think it's really one of the things that's been interesting for me about the whole experience is it's because I think when you're a vet, you get very focused on the clinical situation and making the diagnosis and working out the treatment plan, and you're obviously very aware of the owner's situation, but your sort of focus is on making the diagnosis and fixing the patient. And it's really sort of opened my eyes as to the the other angle of it, the person behind the pet and how they might be feeling. And when you're in a consultation, for example, and you've examined the cat, dog, rabbit, rat, tortoise, whatever, and then as I'm typing up my notes and the camera then goes to the owner, and the question will be, so what does, Toby mean to you? And I'm there sort of finishing off and telling him, wiping the table, whatever. And then it's not a question that we ever really ask or to anybody, and it's not something that really we probably think about. And then to when faced with that very direct question, what does your cat mean to you? Are you worried about what might happen? And suddenly you get this real, because it's very honest, it's a very direct and honest question. You get this real outpouring of emotion almost, and it's been absolutely illuminating to me to see it it's like a highlighter pen highlighting that emotional connection that sometimes I think as busy vets, it's really, I think, reminded me how important that is. And it's not just a conundrum to work out and a diagnosis to be made. It's actually, and it sounds a bit silly, but the first time I really realized this was series 1. We were filming a guy, a farmer, really sort of rough, tough Yorkshire farmer, and he had a flat cap on as well. And I was doing a fertility test on his bull, because he was worried not many of his heifers were pregnant, and we'd done this fertility test. And the semen was all fine, everything was moving and working as it should. But the problem was we could not get the bull to have a proper erection. His penis wouldn't come out properly. So after, what seemed like hours of trying, we diagnosed this poor bull as having like a short penis syndrome, where the penis doesn't come out. And it was kind of a bit lighthearted, or I thought it was. And Izzy, who was the PD at the time, was interviewing the farmer afterwards, and said, what's it? You must be quite upset. How do you feel? Your bull's not. And this rough, tough, wizened, gnarly old farmer who'd always moan and grumble about vets and bills and all the rest of it. And he started crying. He said, I'm trying my best to make my herd better and improve it. And I bought this bull hoping that it was going to be the way to bring the herd forward. And, I'm trying my best, and all my aspirations are being dashed at every opportunity. And then I thought, what? There's a human and behind every animal, even if it's a farm animal, really. And it really opened my eyes as to the importance of that emotional connection. And it was something that, obviously as vets we were aware of, but I think it's sometimes easy to sort of pretend isn't as important.
Easy to get caught up, as you say, with the conundrum of it, isn't it?
Yeah, do you know
Thinking
what I mean?
this is a case, not this is actually a part of someone's family in a way.
Yeah.
That's quite touching, actually. I think that's rather good. I mean, you mentioned their voiceovers, and the voiceover on the show for many series was done by Christopher Timothy, was it not?
Mm-hmm.
Christopher Timothy. I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. The show is pretty much an up-to-date version of All Creatures Great and Small, that massive TV show, which was based on the James Herriot vet books. Or are you going to deny this?
No. It was. I mean, when we were first approached to make the series 6 and a bit years ago, the remit it was, and this came from the controller of Channel 5. It was to be. They wanted to make a program that was the modern version of James Herriot, and
but the real life version.
The real life version of a modern day James Herriot is what they were after. And yeah, bizarrely, that's kind of what they got. Yeah, by, I guess, good fortune for them and a bit of a wing and a prayer from us. But yeah, it's worked out well. And the funny thing, I find it really funny, when we first started, it was, as you say, sort of following on from the James Herriot stories and the James Herriot way of practicing. And then when they've made the the new James Herriot All Creatures Great and Small remake, which has also been on Channel 5. The first series of that, it followed on a Tuesday night straight after our program. So it made me laugh because like we sort of existed only because James Herriot had existed. And then the new version of James Herriot followed on from us. It was like the circle is like complete. It was really funny.
That's fantastic. So Julian, you're running the show, the Yorkshire Vet, which is unashamedly based on the BBC TV series All Creatures Great and Small, which was based on the James Herriot books, which of course were not pure fiction. They were based on a real life of a Yorkshire vet, James Herriot. And the James Herriot books were very, very inspirational to a lot of youngsters growing up who then wanted to become vets. The part of James Herriot in the All Creatures Great and Small show was played by an actor called Christopher Timothy. So let me ask you this, please, Julian. When was it that you realised you wanted to be Christopher Timothy?
Well, I mean, when I was I don't know. Did I want to be Christopher Timothy? Did I want to be James Herriot? I watched those programs on a Sunday night when I was a kid, 7, 8 years old. I can't remember exactly, and I can bring back those memories with absolute clarity. And it was a Sunday evening, every Sunday evening, and there'd be me and my family, my sister, mum and dad, my gran and grandpa who lived up the road, who loved it because they were very much animal people, and we'd sit there with cups of tea. Even as an 8-year-old, we'd have tea on a Sunday, and you'd be thinking, "Oh gosh, tea! I don't like that very much." But anyway, you grow to love it, don't you? And we used to eat. We used to have a pork pie sliced up into slices, and we'd have tongue sandwiches, which don't exist anymore, do we? No.
Oh, I still get tongue.
and Mr. Kipling's Fondant Fancies was always for pudding.
Oh, now you're talking.
Sit there with all these things, and the music came on, and that iconic kind of old-fashioned car, I don't know what it was, going down through the ford and water splashed everywhere. And it was, I mean, it brings, goosebumps, doesn't it? The music and
the music's going around my head even as we speak about it. It's great.
And these great stories of passionate people and interesting characters and beautiful scenery and fresh air and animals and weird Yorkshire farmers and it just captivated me as a great way to live. And I loved the outdoors, I loved the fresh air, I loved animals. I guess then as a 7 or 8 year old, I thought that would be a great way to spend my life. And then you don't plan your career when you're 7 or 8, and I got to school and I struggled a bit to start with, but I eventually found my feet, and I thought eventually, you're working out what career to do, and I thought, what, it wouldn't be a bad thing to be a vet. Veterinary was, the hardest thing to get into at university, and I just thought, what, I'm going to do that, and then I did, and then bizarrely, so my first job was in the north of Scotland at a practice in Caithness, which by possibly coincidence, but possibly not, that is actually also on telly now as the Highland Vet, also on Channel 5.
Gosh.
And that was an amazing place to work. I worked as a locum there for about 3 months. And then my first full-time job was in Thirsk, following literally in the footsteps of James Herriot. And I remember, at that time, I didn't feel like I was particularly following in those footsteps because the practice didn't have any real strong connection with the Herriot thing. We were trying to almost distance ourselves from that heritage, which is ironic now when you see.
Because it was actually Alf Wright's practice, wasn't it?
Yeah, Alf Wright was and Jim White. So Jim, when I started at the practice, Jim, who was Alf White's son, was retiring or partly retiring to write a book, a biography of his dad. And he wanted some.
I should just explain to viewers and listeners that Alf White was the real name of James Herriot. So James Herriot wrote under this pseudonym. Alf White wrote under the pseudonym James Herriot. Yeah. But Alf was a local vet at your practice. And Siegfried Farnan wasn't his real name either, was it?
No, so he was Siegfried was the fictitious name, but based on a very interesting guy called Donald Sinclair. Was, I think, just as eccentric as Siegfried in the books and on the telly. He sort of owned the practice, and then when Alf started, James Herriot started, I think after not too long, he sort of gave him a share of the practice on condition that he would basically work his socks off, and that's how he got into it, and they ran it as a partnership from then. So yeah, so it was interesting, really, and not particularly planned. I wanted to work in Yorkshire, and I wanted to do a mixed practice, and it kind of all fell into place, really. But I remember when I first started, I used to, I guess you'll have done the same. I used to wear a brown coat for no particular reason. It was an impractical outfit for a vet, but that's what we used to wear, I think, wasn't it?
Absolutely, traditional wear. You'd always have that.
Yeah.
And you still wear a shirt and tie, don't you? Because I've moved over to the polo shirt, I must admit.
I've ditched the tie of recent years for no particular reason other than, I don't know, I felt it was a bit formal. So I've always felt it's important to be fairly smart as a vet, but a lot of my kind of contemporaries were wearing things like polo shirts with logos on, or scrubs and things. But yeah, I've worn for the majority of my career a shirt and tie.
I did for the first 5 or 6 years after qualifying, and then I went into just small animal, and the practice I started at as just a small animal vet wore polo shirts, so I wore those and never got to use my tie collection after that, really.
Yeah.
You wear scrubs now, don't you, Julian?
I wear scrubs now.
I mean, you're appearing tonight in your scrubs.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I've been doing my part-time job today, so I've actually got my uniform on.
I noticed NHS. Have you been vaccinating?
Yeah, I've been vaccinating today, so that was down at our local thing, sticking needles in people's arms. It's great.
And how do you compare people compared to dogs' scruffs or cows' rumps?
Right, okay. Well, if you're comparing to popping it into the dog scruff, where you draw the skin back over the needle, it's a little bit different. It's quite good. You get the same reactions. Some don't know you've jabbed them. So
you're there saying a little scratch, all done. Oh, have you done it? Have you done it?
Have you had many bites?
No, I haven't. Although I work in Portsmouth and Gosport, I haven't. I've avoided that. I was kicked once.
I vaccinated one of my clients last week, and he said, I brought my dog to see you, didn't I? I said, that's right. It's my other job. And he said, is it very different? I said, well, the only thing is they don't let me take your temperature. So, Julian, one question we've asked a lot of guests of late is, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
It's a good question. I think if I was doing it again, I think, in all honesty, I would make more out of my university time as a vet. I would definitely be a vet again. No doubt about that. I've had a fantastic career. It's been very full. I've experienced lots of things that have been really exactly what I wanted, I think, my veterinary career to be. I've challenged myself. I've made a big difference to a lot of people's lives and animals' lives. I've been out in the fresh air. I've woken up nearly every morning, thinking, "Great, I'm going to work again today." And it's not all been, plain sailing, but for the most part, I would definitely do this again. Whether I would do it again, like now, going into the current profession, I think it's a different playing field altogether now to how it was 25 years ago when I started. But if I could do it again from an 18-year-old, I'd probably try and make a bit more out of my university career. And I don't mean that at the time I felt I was maximizing it, but I probably, if I'm honest, spent a bit too much time at the pub. Every day was full to the brim with things when I was at university, but it was jam-packed with time in the bar and time socializing. And I kind of think that, I only discovered 2 days ago that I was at university at the same time as Sacha Baron Cohen, for example.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Emily Maitlis from Newsnight, and Claudia Winkleman and Claire Balding, and lots of really significant people that I think I once met Claudia Winkleman at a party, but obviously didn't mean anything. She was just a person there. But I think probably it was an amazing time that I could have probably made a bit more constructive use of, rather than just having an excellent time. And so I did loads of stuff at university. I did a lot, learned how to become a vet. In the end, the final 3 years, I won loads of prizes. I worked really hard, and all the things that, in fact, one of them's here. Can I just show you this? Because this is on the I don't normally see this, but this is my final prize.
That's a great. There's a model of a Frisian cow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I've not cleaned it. There's a little plaque there. I can't even see what it says, but it was basically the Intervet Prize, I think it says. It was for the student of the year, which the staff voted for. So in the end, I worked hard and did well and achieved things that
I got student of the year as well when I was there. Last year at vet school. That was by John Bower, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was two. There was the John Bower one, and I think that was Intervet. That was Intervet.
Right.
Might have been the same, but there was two. One voted for by the vet school, and another voted for by your peers. So I can't remember which was which.
Yeah, the John Bower one was basically by your peers, and I was thrilled and humbled to have been awarded that. Didn't get a plastic cow though, I must admit. I would like that.
Plastic, it's made of china or porcelain.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Oh God, I ruined it.
Julian,
it looks jolly nice.
I apologise. I apologise to my partner in crime, Julian. I'm sorry.
Honestly,
let's move to safer ground here. Actually, let's move to less safe ground. You say that you wouldn't necessarily tell your 18-year-old self to go into the profession as it is now and becoming now. It is changing, isn't it? Profession is changing. What are the good bits and what are the bad bits?
I think I'm not a massive fan of the change of structure towards a corporate kind of takeover. We've been sort of hearing the sort of, from the football that's happened today, the sort of Super League kind of thing that the fans have kind of vetoed almost with their feet. And I see that's a similar kind of thing to the corporatization of the veterinary world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not all bad. I'm sure that kind of structural change does bring benefits to the profession in some ways, but I feel that veterinary practice works best if the people who own it are there and coming in and doing the clinics and answering the phone and wiping the tables and doing the work, rather than being based in Geneva or America or Watford or wherever. And I can't help thinking that is sucking a bit of the juice, vitality, love out of the profession.
The profession, I think, I agree with you. I think the profession is becoming less personal.
Yeah,
isn't it?
That's to its detriment. I sort of spoke to someone today who'd been for a second opinion because his Labrador was lame, and he'd had some X-rays, and the X-rays had gone off to a referral centre they'd said, "Oh, we need to do a CT scan." Came to see me for a second opinion, and we'd done various things, and again done some more X-rays and examined the dog in a bit more thoroughly. And really, he just wanted to talk to someone, and he wanted to spend half an hour with his dog, feeling his legs and talking to him and saying, well, the pros and cons of it. And I think it's very easy to kind of, see a dog that's lame. The next question is it insured? And then the next question is, well, it's going to be, or the next statement is it's going to be £6,000 to have a TPLO. And yeah, it might be brilliant, but it's not necessarily for everyone. And I think you need to have a discussion rather than follow a flow chart.
Yeah. We need to be finding out what the client wants. Do they want a dog that can compete in the Olympics afterwards, or they want a dog that approaching perhaps the later part of its life is happy plodding, and they're happy plodding with it, and actually that's all they may be able to afford.
Exactly.
So we don't give enough options, I think, to clients, do we?
No, and I think we need to credit clients with, I always say to students, there's 10, 12, 15 different ways to manage every single case that comes through the door of your consulting room, and there isn't one way that's the right way. And I think at vet school, students come out of it, it's a tough time. They've got so much to learn, way more than we had to learn, because when we were at vet school, there's probably only about 5 different conditions that affected every animal. Now there's 105, and
there are only 4 drugs to treat them with anyway.
Exactly, and stuff like that. But and it's really hard, and I always tell students, look, don't feel compelled that every animal needs to fall into the same mold of this, that gold standard treatment, MRI scan, referral. There's lots of ways of managing every single case, and for me, that being a practitioner, the best thing is discussing that journey from, dog comes through the door, work out what's wrong, discuss what to do, and make a plan. And every case is different, and every owner is different, and everybody's circumstances are different. And I think that it's very easy and wrong to go on a kind of flow chart. Dog lame, right hind, have x-rays, have an MRI scan, have a TPLO, mended, £10,000 later, job done. And it's not really like that in my view. You need to, get your hands on the dog, feel it, talk, listen, do some more listening, do some more talking, and get to a mutually agreed solution between the animal, the owner, the vet, and other people as well, physios and referral people. I mean, there's some brilliant vets out there who can do amazing things, but I think that it's not right to presume that every dog that comes in 2/5 lame on its right hind needs to go through an MRI machine and come out with £6,000 of metalwork.
I think you're absolutely right. I always maintain that I don't treat a dog. I treat the dog owner unit. There's no dogs and cats, rabbits, and everything like that. They don't necessarily exist as patients in their own right. They only are patients because they're owned and managed by someone.
Yeah, exactly.
What other changes? I mean, we've spoken about corporatization. Any other dangers to the profession, or risks to the profession, or worries, or that you're going to warn your 18-year-old self about?
I think that there's a sort of assumption that the way to aspire and progress yourself is to become more and more specialist. 25 years ago, when I was leaving vet school, there was this sort of, mixed general practice, mixed practice was still quite popular, but there was still this kind of feeling that aspiring to be an orthopedic surgeon or an anesthesiologist or whatever was the way to go. And I think that that's even more so now. And I think that there's a great merit in generalism. I think it's a very fulfilling way of working if you can treat with skill a dermatology case, and then a cardiac case, and then a case that just really isn't really a case, but the owner just needs some reassurance. And I don't think that it's right to presume that good vets are only the vets who are highly qualified and highly specialized. And I do feel that that's an assumption that's within the profession, that to be good, you have to have more letters after your name than anybody else, and you need to be the person who can do a TPLO in 35 minutes. I really think that there's a great, merit in being a good generalist, and I think that there's very much there's a bit of a, you're just a first opinion vet, or you're just a generalist, or that makes somehow
it demeans the knowledge, the empathy, the understanding, the communication skills, and everything else that you have to have as a generalist.
Yeah, I mean, definitely specialists are brilliant, but in a way, it's kind of 10 times easier because you've only got, half a dozen bits to learn. I mean, being an ophthalmologist, I mean, that must be doddle. Eyes of like one thing that's that big. That problems with it must be easy.
Absolutely. How many things can you have in something that size? It's,
Sorry to any ophthalmologists that
we haven't had an ophthalmologist on yet, have we, Mike?
No,
we must do that. I'll get David Williams perhaps to come on and counter argue that, Julian. But,
yeah.
Actually, he would give a good counter argument to that.
I think he would. But I was speaking to a GP, a human GP friend of mine the other day, so sorry to interrupt, who said just the same thing, that actually she feels sometimes that that more and more patients these days are going to see her just as a stepping stone to referral. So they see her as a necessary obstacle to get a referral through from. And I think we are at risk as generalists of having the same thing happen to us.
And I think in a way, in the veterinary world, the dog can't say, you know what, it hurts there, and every time I swallow it hurts there, and I feel fine until I have to, go to the toilet. They can't tell us, so we have to have a more holistic approach, and we have to get information from the owner, crucial information from the owner, and we have to look at the dog as a total whole unit. The way it walks in, the way it looks, the way its head moves, the way it wags its tail, and I think it's almost for a vet more important to have a general overview rather than just looking at one little bit. Probably even more so than with human medicine. So I really do think that we should be embracing and celebrating generalism rather than specialism. And I feel that the profession, certainly since I've been in it, has tended to go down the specialist route, which I don't feel is necessarily the best way.
No, it's very clever, and it's a great show of our knowledge and our increasing resources. But you're right, it's not for every case. And I do worry occasionally that we are increasing specialism even at the primary care phase. We see a lot of vets who come out from college very risk averse and very afraid to do anything outside an increasingly limited comfort zone. I can see, particularly with the rise of corporatization, I can see there being a time that someone goes to see a vet for a vaccine and says, "Oh, by the way, there's a lump on my dog. Could you have a look at that?" Oh, no, I don't do lumps, but I can fit you in with a lump vet after this. Or they see the lump vet and say, "Can you check, does he need dental?" Or, "I can't assess dentals. I'll fit you in with the oral assessment practitioner."
Yeah. I think we need to, as a profession, do more things ourselves and not be frightened of, pinning that cat's leg.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. It's knowing your limitations, isn't it? It's knowing that actually you can do a procedure or you can't do a procedure. It's simple as that.
You sound, Julian, you sound saying that, know your procedures and knowing that you can do them, that you can't. That sounds like a recipe for 60-second CPD to me.
It does rather, doesn't it? So would you be willing to do a 60-second CPD for us?
I would be very willing to do a 60-second CPD as long as I can think of something to say in the next 15 seconds that will last for 60 seconds that will be of merit to anybody.
I haven't started the clock yet, mate.
Okay, well, you say go. I think I'd like to talk about something I'm really passionate about is engaging and encouraging and giving confidence to the younger members of the profession, particularly first day out. You've got your MRCVS and all the other letters, and it's day one. You walk into that vet for your first job, and for the first time in your life, you're standing on the wrong side of the consulting room table.
Okay, so that sounds brilliant. So in that case then,
Great.
Julian Norton, the Yorkshire Vet, thank you very much indeed. So Julian Norton, the Yorkshire Vet, 60 seconds on your first day of practice, starting now.
Okay, so hello everybody, and particularly new vets who are about to start work today. This might be some of you. Already I've used 10 seconds. I've not given you any useful information. So first thing, look for clues. Vets need to look for clues. We can't work anything out if we haven't got clues. So be a detective, ask the right questions, and look for the answer to those questions. It's no point saying, is your dog being sick? Yes. You need to know why how many times it's being sick. 10 times in the last half a day, or 10 times in the last year. So be a detective. That's trick number one. Trick number two, be confident. This x-ray on my phone came from a colleague of mine from a few months ago, actually. She's fixed a cat's femur. Look at that. She's not an orthopedic surgeon, but she can do anything. So be confident as well. Look for clues and be confident, and the world's your oyster.
And there you have it.
Fabulous.
Wow, spot on.
60 seconds. That was
with 15 seconds preparation time. That's amazing. Julian, well done.
Excellent.
Well done.
Excellent.
As they say in your neck of the woods, that'll do.
That'll do. I don't think you need a retake on that, to be honest.
No, all right. It was a bit vague. I can, if anybody wants more detail, a more detailed summary, maybe over 5 minutes, I'm happy to speak to people via Instagram or email or whatever. So please contact me if you want a more informative CPD over a minute.
So have you done a certificate for Julian?
I have. So we give out a CPD certificate.
Yeah.
Because this actually counts as CPD.
Yeah.
Now, because we can transfer these certificates to viewers and listeners via email, they're electronic certificates, and so it's actually an e-certificate. But of course, because you're the Yorkshire Vet, it becomes an e-certificate.
E-bar gum certificate.
E-certificate. That'll do, is it? That'll do. This certifies that the North has come southwards for knowledge exchange, and there's not like learning. And this this selection of photos really just provides a little snapshot of the fact that you and I, Julian, we are generalists. I don't do large animals anymore, but in the course of my time, I've treated all of these animals. We've got sheep and pigs and dogs, snakes. There's a cat with a nosectomy.
Yeah.
And cattle as well.
Yeah.
And it really is, as the book says, it's all creatures great and small, isn't it? We don't distinguish between large ones and small ones. We go for the animal because the owner or carer has brought them in for our care. Attention. It's been a great ramble and a great chat.
Been a good old ramble. It's sort of a Yorkshire Dales ramble, isn't it? It's it's been great fun. It's been great.
Would you do veterinary rambling like this, actually rambling out in the countryside? Would that be a spin-off series you might consider?
Wow.
Yeah, we're afraid to go out. We haven't been out for a year. I haven't been out. Have you been out? Other than to vaccine centres and
Only to the vaccine centre. I go to the vaccine centre and back again.
Yeah. But Julian, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you sparing the time.
Have you got a joke for us, Julian?
I have.
Go on then.
I have. So I usually round off the evening with a pretty bad joke, and tonight's no exception. And this is in homage to your part of the country, and it's rather a sad story, because there's this well-to-do Yorkshire businessman whose wife dies, and he's devastated. She's his world to him, and he wants to give her a good send-off. And he thinks, well, the best thing to do is to get a nice headstone. And he goes to the funeral parlour. He says, could you direct me to your stonemason? And they say, yeah, well, actually, we got one out back, does all our masonry. So, well, bring him through, I'll have a chat. And this guy comes through and says, yes. He says, my wife's died. He says, oh, no, I'm so sorry. Well, yeah, Thanks for that. But I'd like a nice headstone with angels on it. And she was a very devout woman. She was. She prayed every day, and I'd like you to put something like that on the headstone. I want you to put, "She was thine, O Lord." He said, "I'll do that for you while Tuesday week." He said, "It's be grand because the funeral's on Thursday." So he goes along the following Tuesday, and he looks at it and he says, "No, God, you missed the E out. It says she was thin, oh Lord. That's no good. You missed the E out. I'm terribly sorry. I'll do it a couple of days. Well, you can't take a couple of days. The funeral's on Thursday. I'll do it. I'll do it. No problem at all." So come the day of the funeral, the businessmen, they've had the ceremony, and they're outside by the grave, and the businessman's head's bowed in gentle reflection, and he looks up at the gravestone there, proudly at the end of the grave, and it says, she were thin, oh Lord."
It's probably a true story. It's probably a true story. There's loads of similar ones in. Did you hear the one about the chap whose dog died? Same kind of thing. He went to get a headstone for his dead dog. This chap from Barnsley was from Barnsley, and he went to the chap and said, "Look, my dog's died. He was my best mate. I'd like a statue making of my dog to go on, on his where his grave, and I want it made out of solid gold. And I love this dog, and it was the best thing that ever was in my life." So he said, "Oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, no problem. What kind of gold do you want it?" "I want it the best. 18 carat. Nay, lad, I want him chewing bone." There's loads of them, all mocking the Yorkshire dialect.
You can always tell a Yorkshireman, can't you?
Yeah.
You can't tell him much.
We were taught how to speak Yorkshire. The first day of college, we had a talk from one of the lecturers. He said, "You're going to see people from different parts of the country, and you may not have seen them before. And so we've issued little translation sheet for you." And I can't remember all of them. It was a brilliant word. It said tin, tin, tin. Tin, tin, tin. And the explanation was, it's not in the tin.
Not in the tin, yeah.
Tin, tin, tin.
Tin, tin, tin.
Well, on that note,
on that bombshell.
It's quite amusing. I noticed you were drinking red wine there throughout the evening there, Julian.
Yeah, it's gone now, that empty glass. Yeah, I need to get some more now.
Do you know how I tell the difference between red wine and white wine?
Go on.
I look at the colour. So there we go.
You've been thinking that all night, haven't you?
I wrote that one down before we started, and then you paired with a glass of red wine. Oh, it's got to go in.
Fantastic! I like that one.
Yeah.
No, that's excellent stuff. So listen, Julian Norton, the Yorkshire Vet, thank you very, very much for joining us on Veterinary Ramblings. And if any of our listeners have enjoyed meeting Julian, don't forget to check out the Yorkshire Vet TV series on Channel 5 and looking him up. And I'm sure you'll have a great time watching it. We've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed going through the research for it as well. So thank you very much indeed for joining us on Veterinary Ramblings.
Thanks for having me, and good luck. Hope you get lots of listeners.
Julian, may your dog go with you.
May your dog go with you, Julian.
Cheers. All the best. I need to log my CPD. I'm trying to get onto my blooming CPD account. It won't work.
The RCVS, they blocked you out.
No, I mean, no activities today. That's all going to change. 1 hour and going to put it down as Vet Ramblings podcast.
Yeah, why not?
Absolutely, and reflective learning.
And what's the activity type?
What are the options?
Clinical skills lab. It's not that. Conference, course, distance learning formal. It's not formal, is it? Distance learning other, distance learning webinar, external qualification, other, seminar, workshop, and that's it.
I'd say other workshop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Workshop. Yeah.
What would be amazing is if the RCVS actually came back to you. That would be just.
I'm gonna have to. There's no option for 1 hour and 1 minute, so I'm gonna have to put 1 hour and kind of round up to 15 minutes.
Yeah, 1 hour and 15.
Yeah.
Because you'll reflect on this later anyway, won't you? So.
I'll be reflecting on this for weeks, let alone.
Post-traumatic stress syndrome will kick in. And